Robin, thank you for joining me today. Introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm Robin Hunting. I'm I guess, face of Dutch in USA. That's the channel we do, me and my wife do together. I was born and raised in the Netherlands, near Amsterdam. Spent some time in the military there. I did 2 years Royal Army and then 5 years Royal Marines. In that time, I also met my wife, who was American. After a few back and forth trips, we decided to move back to the United States, or move back with her, so to say, and did a few gigs in security, some private security. Realized that it is not the same as the military. You have no fallouts. There's no call you can call to get pulled out of a situation. And ended up in operational management. From there, did fulfillment stores. I managed those warehouses, and ended up at a company that does recycling. They have like a bracelet sale, and we would collect trash out of the oceans, and I kind of managed that all over the world, uh, mostly Asia and some South America countries. And in that time, I started, this TikTok channel first for fun, and as it kind of progressed and some things happened to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, it just kept growing, and it's something I love to do on the side, and I still work full time. I love what I do with recycling, and kind of like the best of both worlds because I get to do something good, and then do the Dutch USA on the side. So that's how we ended up here.
That's really cool. I saw a picture that you posted on Instagram not long ago of you getting, I guess you just gotten out of the water, doing some salvage stuff, and there's like you're sitting next to like a whole bunch of tires that's in the ocean. How cool is it to be able to go diving and be able to clean that stuff up?
So we did that a few times, and it was just like you get paid to go diving. Obviously with all the safety checks, but with my background and some certification I hold, they let me go dive. It's insane how that particular project happened because the coral reef was dying out, and they decided, under whatever psychedelics they were taking, that tires that they had no use for with metal chains will make beautiful coral for fish to forage in. Unfortunately, that did not happen. The chain started to rot, or like rust, broke up, and damaged more coral reefs than they can possibly imagine, including finding tires as far as North and South Carolina, because they just started rolling in the ocean. So, the company I worked for removed those from the ocean and cleaned them up.
Wow. So, because I hear about, sometimes they sink ships for like habitats for fish and all that sort of stuff. So you were actually going and collecting what somebody had actually thought was going to help the coral reef, right?
Yep. It's They had an abundance of tires, no way to recycle it, and for whatever studies that they done, they decided that was a good idea, and they did it by the thousands, like barges full, and they dropped them there. Yeah,
Wow.
it's right off Fort Lauderdale. It's like millions of tires.
Wow. All right. Well, sounds like you got your work cut out for you then.
And we were busy. I mean, the Army Corps of Engineer did it as well, and all kinds of other projects, and just no end to it.
Man. Well, a lot of people, know you from your TikTok and your Instagram and all of that sort of stuff. So what led you to say, "Hey, I want to do this on social media and share this with folks"? Kind of tell us how that got started.
So we started TikTok. So my wife started TikTok for a company to kind of like check it out, right? It was new. Like, can we do something with this? She's in marketing. So she started posting some videos. I'm like, this is a really fun app, start scrolling a little bit, started making some of my own videos, mostly like funny ones or like voiceovers of things. And then there was this guy doing something with ropes on like how to make handcuff knots, but not like in the way, not in like a safety security sphere, more like, look how handsome I am and look what I can do. So I kind of made fun of that one, and that, gave me a few followers. And then people were like, well, how do you actually make like a handcuff out of rope? And then I showed that. And then I did some other things you can do with rope, like how to make like a harness so you can climb down if you need to. And not with like a harness you need to buy, but seriously, just like a bunch of rope and how to tie that together. And I started looking at a few other ones, and then it was like, well, if you are handcuffed, then how do you get out of the rope handcuffs? Like, what can you do? And I showed them like, okay, there's ways how you can create friction to give you some leverage to come out, or before they put on the rope, there's some things you can do to give you more space to get out later. And then from there it just cycled on. Like, okay, well, what about duct tape? I see a lot of movies that, one piece of duct tape and everyone's like, oh, I can't get out. So I'm like, it's a great combination because with my background in like plastics and recycling, once you figure out like how fragile things are or how they work, you can easily show people what to do to get out. So with the duct tape, I'm like, well, all right, so let's put it on. Well, it doesn't tear like this, but if you make a small rip, it tears easily. So how do you create that? So then we started doing videos, and then one of the questions was, how do you get out of zip ties? Because you see it in movies all the time. It's
Oh,
like
right.
one measly little zip ties, and they're stuck there for 5 days. So I showed them how to break out of that. Did a few follow-up videos on like people like, well, what do you do if you're pregnant? You can't slam it on your belly, and different ways of like using your shoelaces to get out or creating friction on a corner. And then one of the videos, someone was in a very bad dispute with her husband, domestic violence issue, who ducked it or zip tied her and put her in the back of the car for whatever reason that progression went on. She got out because she slammed down, broke it, and then got out of the car and then stopped someone else with another car and drove to the police station. And then I did a video on that, like her telling my story, asking if I could share it. And that one kind of blew up. And then it was like, okay, well, how do you get out of zip ties and stuff? So I did that cycle again. And then I added in handcuffs, ropes, hog ties, bandanas, like any type of. It's almost like I became Houdini because I had to like figure out how to do all this. What do you do if it's tied to a chair or metal, chains, all kinds of crazy stuff. So I just started, tying myself up and putting myself in situations that I had to figure out, how to pick a handcuff lock or stuff like that. And from there, kind of like I gained a lot of followers. I got to like 2.5 million, somewhere around there. And then from there, we started doing some safety reviews. We had tested some cameras, we tested some pepper spray, and then we got hired by a company to test their window breaker and pepper spray combo. So we go to the junkyard. And I'm like, look, um, you can hire me. I'll test my products, but the only thing I got is sincerity. So, and honesty, I can't. If it doesn't function as I want, I'm going to give you feedback, and I'll give you back your money for me to test it out, minus going to the junkyard to pay for the windows I'm going to break. Um, so, sort of COGS, cost of goods. But anyway, I went there and I tried it out, and this thing won't break. Like I'm like, there's something wrong with this window breaker. Like it's not functioning. And on top of that, as I'm slamming the window, the pepper spray becomes loose and started like spraying in my face. So we had
Hmm.
this whole thing. Like I contacted the company. I'm like, this doesn't work. Like you got to pull it off the shelf or something. And that didn't happen. They, I gave them money back. I'm like, can't do business with you. But they started promoting it anyway. And I'm like, okay, well, this is uncomfortable. And I'm like, okay, so if that one doesn't work, which is like one person in the US, how many products are there that do not work but are promoted as life saving? So me and my wife start buying like window breakers on Amazon, all kinds of crazy ones. If it had more than one, what was it? Multi-tool 9-in-1 tool. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, there's just too many things. Like one of
Right.
one of these items is not gonna work. So we bought like 20 of them, and out of the 20, 6 or 7 didn't work.
Hmm.
So we did multiple series on that. And then from there, we're like, okay, we're now in the testing safety equipment sphere. Now we're going to add on things. So we did like animal safety, what to look for, more into like what to do if your kids get kidnapped, what can you do prior to that, security locks on your doors, which one to use, which one don't. And it just spiraled on into this whole safety and escape and evade kind of brand. So that's a pretty long version, but that's kind of like how it's progressed.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite things that I've seen you do is like you're in the junkyard, you're sitting in the car and you're going to try to break the window. I think it's interesting. You have to pay them for breaking the window in the junk car. Like how much does it cost to break a window in a junkyard? I'm just curious.
So it kind of started. Number one, not all junkyards allow you to do it because
Hmm.
of safety reasons. They don't want you on their liability. So I called this guy. I'm like, look, I have all these products. They don't work. I really need somewhere to test this, and I want to be authentic, and I want to go and actually test them, not just buy a piece of glass and like, yeah, it works, you know. And he's like, well, actually, I got a daughter about the same age. I think it's great what you're doing. You can come on by. I'll put a car out front, not on my property, but like right on my property. And you can do whatever you want to the car. And um, I pay him like $400 for the entire car because I pay him whatever he gets if he would resell the parts. So
Gotcha.
he can still get the engine parts he can still use, but the windows are like 25 to $30 per piece that he pulls out. He's like, look, as long as you cover that, you can do whatever you want to the car. So, and that's kind of like I like that, like if he's giving me the opportunity and I don't want to take advantage of that. So you should about $400 for the entire car, depending on the windows.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
I I enjoy how you have busted the myth over and over again that you're supposed to take the headrest off the front of the car and you can use that to smash the window. And you've actually talked about a lot of other myths that, people believe about safety or about escaping and things like that. What's a safety myth out there that you think a lot of people really truly believe?
You're going to be fine during the day. A lot of people feel extremely safe during the day. It's like a flip of a switch where at night they're like doing all these things to be safe that you should just include in your day-to-day life, wherever or not it's day or night. But yeah, people, just scrolling on their phone, walking during the day, and then at night they're like looking around, and you know, I think it's amazing that people don't use the same kind of situational awareness from just because of a time difference. That's one. Um, it's just a good safety one.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of times that, we are just told things by friends or by family members, so we just kind of believe it. What I like to see with you is that you're actually walking through and doing these things and showing people, like, with the glass breakers, this one works, this one doesn't, that sort of thing. How rewarding is that for you to be able to sit there and say, "Hey, here is something that we all thought would work. It's not going to, but now you know more." How does that make you feel?
Oh, it's great. I mean, like 3 weeks ago, this lady reached out. She's like, "Hey, a few years ago, I bought a window breaker. I saw the whole series, and I always thought I could just break the window with my heel or kick it out or whatever. And then I saw your videos. I ended up buying this small spring-loaded window breaker, and I guess her and her boyfriend or fiance were on a crash collision, like it was happening in front of them, and the car caught fire and they couldn't open the door. And she used her got back to her car, got a spring loaded thing and broke it. I'm like, I mean, there's not a, there's not a better feeling in the world than, you know, being able to provide information and people actually do something.
Yeah, man. That is amazing. You've talked about, using a lot of everyday regular items to kind of escape situations. But what do you think there are some things in advance that families can use to like prepare for an emergency? Kind of give me a few things that I should keep in my house in the event of an emergency.
Well, I mean, the obvious things, right? So fire extinguishers, fire alarms, but just like things that are bolted into your house. Um, Little grab bag, with most important documents. Ultimately your house is worth or is replaceable, but a lot of the documents and stuff. So I have one small filer cabinet that in case something goes wrong, I'll take that entire thing, has everything pressures and everything we need. That's more from a logistical side. It's not really like if I get attacked. I really believe in deterring, like taking steps to make sure your house is not a target. Because I own weapons, but I also think that if you are a gun owner, you should also heavily invest in the security of your home prior to having to use that right?
Hmm.
Um, so cameras, actual good door locks, replacing your screws. There's a lot of small things you can do to keep your house safe. For me, with small children, it's really about making sure no one can exit because from the outside it's safe, but I also have little ones trying to get out sometimes. So, I have some extra door locks that I use. There's some that I prefer over others. Um, what else for safety? What do I have that's really different than someone else? I mean, I got extra locks on all the doors.
Hmm.
It doesn't sound that crazy, but that's one.
Yeah, a lot of people just think that, if the knob lock is locked on the front door, that that's enough. Some people don't even use the deadbolt that's already on their door. So yeah, having that extra layer of an additional like secondary lock inside your home is great. But a point you made a while ago that I really like is talking about how vital it is to deter people from choosing your house to even try to break into and that sort of stuff. I've always, tried to share with people that that's like the biggest thing that you need to do with home security. A lot of people think the home security starts at the front door. I think it starts at the street. What are some, things that we can do as families to kind of keep people from, or to deter people from breaking into our homes?
I mean, the big four that I like, um, and there's kind of a difference between real security and then like security on a budget. So I'll get to both. Number one is security system with cameras, floodlights. So if anyone comes towards the house, that the light it lights up. Signage of any security system also already deters prior to them coming towards the house that they can see the cameras. And dogs. Um, that those are four for me, right? So you got the cameras, you got the floodlights, you got the signs, and then animals. For me, I got a dog, so I like that. And then there's the one on a budget. You can nowadays buy a security system, little stick on for your yard for like $10.
Hmm.
That's one. There's fake securities that have a little right red light into them that you can put somewhere that will from a distance will look like it's the real deal. And signage, on the for me, I have two, what do you call it? Two doors that lead towards my backyard. You can put a little sign on there from like "Beware of the dog,"
Hmm. Hmm.
or one that's not too popular, but usually does the trick. Like we support to the Second Amendment,
Hmm.
something that indicates that you own guns. Those are all things you can probably buy for under $20.
Right.
That won't, it's not the real deal. I don't recommend it, but if you really have no money, then you got to do something.
Right. It's different for everybody in every house and every budget. So yeah, so that there's a lot of
Exactly.
good stuff in there. Being a dad, what are the real dangers that you feel kids are facing today?
The one that's constantly in my mind is school shootings. Um, I don't know what happened or how it happened. It's just like something day to day life. Um, that one is very significant because all the other ones I'm either close by my kids that I feel like I have control or somehow can dictate the situation of what they're gonna do in that situation. That's the one where I have no control. I'm not near it, and I'm relying on other people to guide my children through it. So for me, that one is really big. Um, Obviously, like kidnappings or whatever, although not that often. And plus, for those situations that when my kids are outside, I'm outside. Wherever we're working in the yard or I'm sitting down in the yard and watching them play, I put cones on the road so they can bike and stuff. Feel like I'm in all those situations, even though they're realistic, they happen in the United States. It's one that I'm close by and can like dictate a little bit how the situation goes. But the school shootings, it's like there's nothing I could do other than trying to prepare my kids for it.
Right. And there are, obviously tips that you could give your kids at the appropriate age level when they're mature enough to handle it and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. I think that's just a conversation that we just have to have nowadays in all that we do. It's summertime right now, and a lot of people are, like going to the pool or going to water parks and things like that. What are some of the things that you kind of keep in mind when your kids are around open water?
I don't let my kids swim without me. And the reason is, well, number one, when I was younger, I used to go to like a school-led swimming program, right? There were two teachers, 20 kids. And the idea is like, oh, they're being washed or whatever, but drownings actually happen when there's like a lot of things going around. And so for me, I don't want anyone swimming with just without my supervision of the kids. Mine are a little bit young. I like when they're, I think for the age group that my kids are in, I want to be there. But right now it's like it can happen so fast. You know, they're swimming underwater, one gets kicked in the face or something with like little wrestle. They're not gonna notice it with 20 kids like jumping up and down the water with the reflection. You're not gonna see a kid in the water until like too late. So I like to make sure that it's either one-on-one or like we do Boy Scouts. I go with my kids, and then it's just me and my kids, and both of them stay with me. You know, it goes so fast. And to trust someone else to watch your kid in a situation where these things could develop, I don't think this is the age anymore where that's acceptable. Like whereas when I was younger, my kids were like, "Oh yeah, you can go with the neighbor and go to wherever," you know. I don't feel, and I might be wrong, but I don't feel that that's there anymore. Not a lot of people will let other people take their kids places.
I agree with you and I understand that, especially when you're talking about having kids around open water and things like that, because if you get distracted by your phone or something like that, you can really miss something that happens. There's a lot of people that think that, kind of going back to busting myths here that, when a kid or somebody drowns, they're going to make a whole lot of noise, they're going to splash, you're going to see it because that's what you see in the movies. But that's not what it's like in real life. There's a fantastic article written that I'll let everybody here Google. It's called Drowning Does Not Look Like Drowning. And it's a lot of the stuff that you just talked about how kids in crowded pools or, out at the lake get into trouble all the time. And unless you are looking as an adult, you might miss it. So yeah, that's important stuff there.
Yeah, so we got, I mean, you have that going on. Um, a lot of the other stuff is like what to do in like, for instance, I took my kids to Disney World, terrified that they would somehow run off and you won't be able to find them, you know? So did some videos on, okay, if they get lost, what are you actually screaming out? Oh, I'm missing my son. Okay, which son? Like there's so many. So like how to like prepare yourself, like instead of saying like I'm looking for my son, you say like looking for a blonde haired boy, blue eyes, gray t-shirt, this pants, whatever. Listens to Jackson. And you just keep repeating that so other people start looking instead of just saying a name. Um, but like kids getting lost, running away. But like I said, all of these scenarios, other than a school shooting, I feel like you are somewhat in control with you being there. You know, other than an altercation with someone just trying to fight you, which I mean, it happens, but I usually stay out of situations like that.
Right. Yeah, you can avoid a lot of that stuff, just depending on where you put yourself and all that. What I hear you saying a lot in what you're telling me is you just got to be proactive about what you're doing. You can't just sit back and kind of let life happen and let life do whatever it wants to. You have to take some responsibility here, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really I don't not do something because I have all my kids with me. I actually do everything with my kids. And people are often like, okay, well, if you have to live in this cycle where you have to anticipate danger, that isn't that stressful or isn't that like you constantly live in the state of fear? And I'm like, no, like with for me, especially with my military background, it's so hammered in. It's second nature. I don't think about it. I don't the things that people see as risk or the counteractives I take, it's just part of my everyday life. It's like taking my keys and my wallet with me whenever I go somewhere. So I think that a lot of people have the opportunity to think about what they want to do and then think about the risks that are involved and come up with a little action plan in your head. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just something you know you're going to do if you're ever in these situations. So proactive approach to, but don't deter doing something just because you have to think about all the safety risks other than real safety stuff, right? I'm just talking about the effort. Like, don't go swim with sharks and think of a plan of what to do with that.
Oh yeah. Oh, what do I do now? Yeah, there's a shark that's
Yeah.
biting me. It's a little too late then, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so kind of as we wrap up here, what kind of advice would you give to families about maintaining a safe home? Not necessarily about home security, but just what is it when I say, like a safe home? What are those things that kind of come to mind for you?
For me, it's really about taking an inventory of your home, the area you're in, and what risk could pose you. And I'm not just talking about crazy people in your neighborhood, but also flood risks, fire risks. How close are you to the nearest hydrant? All those kind of stuff, like things that are just part of everyday life. Are you in a flood zone? Are you a tornado? For me, it's hurricanes. Like is my house rated for hurricanes? Stuff like that. It's just part of why when you buy a house. That's one step. The other step is just like your day-to-day safety. How old are my kids? What are they prone to do? For me, that's door locks on the little cabinet doors where there's chemicals, stuff like that. So it's some extra security. If you have a gun, gun safes, all those steps that you most people already think about when they do it. It's just they might not make the right decision on what to get and what to buy. So it's nice that podcasts like these or channels like mine where you can kind of let go, like, okay, that one works, that one doesn't. Those are the basics. And then anything that we have all thought about is like fire. What do you do with fire? Documents that are important to you. All those steps are all part of like a safe environment. Um, but you can go as granular as like a children's bed. Like how high does it have to be off the floor? And we can talk about this for multiple hours on every safety aspect in my home. But just like think about the consequences of situational awareness. That's really, I know that sounds like one easy word, but it's really that. Like, look at an item, look at a situation, and then come up with a solution for that and move on to the next one. And eventually, you have a secure home.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right, so my last question for you here, Robin. I know you've thought about this. I didn't prepare you for this because I just kind of thought of it as we were talking. You live in Florida. You have these
Mm-hmm.
creatures called alligators. So I know as a man, every man has thought about this. You're out for a walk with your family, and there's a gator between you and your house. What are you going to do?
Turn around, call someone to remove the gator. That's one. Gators are a lot faster than people think in water, but also on land. For us here, gators, we have removal services that come and actually collect it. But honestly, if I have like my little one, pick him up, run away. That's It's the safest thing you can do. I'm not wrestling an alligator. I don't need a new shoes or belt. You know, it sounds very simple, but I'm very fan of if I don't have to fight or have to insert myself, just back off. Like, call someone to deal with it. We have services for that, police, or in this case, an alligator removal service. Let them deal with it. They're the professionals.
Very good. Yeah, nobody needs to actually just go pick a fight with an alligator. So that's good.
I don't recommend it.
Very good. All right, Robin, if people want to know more about you and your mission, where can they find you online?
I'm on all social media platforms as Dutch in USA.
Very good, sir. Man, I appreciate what you're doing. I swear every time I open up Instagram, because I'm old, I don't do TikTok. Every time I open up Instagram, you're right there at the top, either like looking at a video or explaining something new to people. And I appreciate you, man. God bless you.
Thank you so much. God bless.